It's time to take a new approach to finding true fulfillment in your career, health, and state of mind through insightful conversations with those who have found their professional and personal passions while achieving balance. Whether it's entrepreneurs, athletes, or healthcare professionals, we bring you real people, real growth right here on the Boost Podcast. Now, here's your host, Elena Lipson.
Hey Boost Squad, welcome to episode 3. Elena Lipson here, and I am joined today by my guest co-host, Matt Rothman, who is a sales exec superstar and tech enthusiast. So welcome, Matt. And we are also thrilled to introduce today's featured guest, Jenny Lannon, also known on Twitter as Health Tech Jen. So Jenny is here today to talk to us about the health tech scene in Miami and how she is helping to drive its growth. Right now, she runs business development for dotHealth, which is the company behind the launch of the health domain extension, and Building, which is Miami's premier collaborative workspace designed for growing companies and individuals that are serving the tech ecosystem in Miami. And she also co-leads the Miami chapter of Health 2.0. Prior to moving down to Miami to help the health tech scene flourish down there, Jenny got her feet wet in the DC area and the health innovation scene, working both at the Health Innovation Hub and Life Science Accelerator for Springboard Enterprises, as well as NIH. Jenny, we are so thrilled to have you here. Please go ahead and fill in any gaps in my intro.
Health Tech Jen is in the house, rep in Miami, rep in the 305. So I do a couple of things. I do business development for a co-working space for tech companies down here in Miami called Building.co. The company that owns Building owns a couple of other startups, and one of them that I work on too is called dotHealth. It's a domain extension like .com or .org. We own the dotHealth domain extension, and we'll be launching that next year. And then with my free time, as a fun volunteer side project, I run the Health 2.0 Miami chapter with another female health tech founder friend of mine, Sidonia. So we do meetups for Health 2.0 in the South Florida community every month or two.
So it sounds like you are keeping yourself very busy with work, but when you're not working, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with your personal life.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I recently got into triathlons. I started this summer and have been training with some people, mostly from the tech community. It started with a group of people here in Building and started training on the weekend. So I've done my first 2 and hopefully have number 3 coming up soon. So that's fun. You know, I also just like to hang out with friends and go to bars and do normal, young people stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think between that, I keep my time pretty busy, and obviously I love what I do. I love going to all of the tech and startup events that we have down here. So for me, work and fun all kind of melt together.
That's great. And, that's what we hear from a lot of entrepreneurs and people that have really found their niche of what they love doing, that work and play really blend together. I think that one of the things that you mentioned was you're young. And that's one of the things. I've known Jenny for a while. She is young. She is 24 years old, and she has done so many different things. She's worked at NIH. She's worked at Life Sciences Accelerator for women in DC. And now she is down in Miami helping to build out the Miami health tech scene. And she's really an expert in this space, even though she's only been doing it for a few years. And that's part of what makes her such an inspiration to the Boost Squad here today. So Jenny, if you could tell us a little bit about what you think are the 3 things that we need to know about what it's like to build a health tech scene in Miami, that would be great.
All right. So the first thing is, when I came down here a little over a year ago, there was really not much going on. So it was kind of, I got to be a big fish in a small pond. And even in the last year, we've had a ton of new entrants. We now have a digital health accelerator that operates here in Miami. But when I first moved here, there wasn't any of that. So it was really easy to dive in. No one was running Health 2.0 here. So it was an easy place to start and kind of dive in and make something big. I think another thing is that Miami loves events. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but so much of what happens down here in the tech scene in general is lots of events and lots of programming that focuses on in-person events. And it really gets people out. I don't know if people are just more social here, stay in the office less, but we've had a lot of success getting really good people to come out to our events. And then I think the third thing would be like one of my mantras is to just be nice and add value to people. So I try to do that in kind of everything that I do. And I think people sometimes overlook the value of just like being a nice, friendly, approachable person. Last week I was at a health tech happy hour and, like the associate dean for research from University of Miami's health system was there. And, we ended up just like drinking beers together and chatting about badass women and, all sorts of cool stuff. And I think people sometimes get a little bit caught up in the formalities of things and the, like addressing people by doctor and, all of these kind of more traditional things from like our parents' ages. And I think, people down here are kind of receptive to this new generation of startup people and tech people and actually value what we have to bring to the table. So that's been cool.
Jenny, that is awesome. I am really jealous. I'm not down in South Florida and South Beach going to all these fabulous events. And, I can't blame you for leaving Washington, D.C., honestly. But the health tech space, we know it is a thriving space, leveraging technology, the startup community. What trend are you seeing right now? What is thriving in the health tech space? And then where do you see it going? Where do you see the future hold for the health tech space?
Yeah. So in Miami, and I'm totally stealing this from Startup Bootcamp, which is the accelerator for digital health down here, but they do a really good job of kind of summarizing the value of health tech companies having a presence in the Miami market. So specifically for Miami, you can think of Miami as like the city of 2050. So it represents a lot of what America will be like in 20, 30 years from now. We're going to be one of the first cities that has to deal with sea level rise and some of the effects of climate change. We have one of the largest Spanish speaking populations in the U.S., and it's only going to grow in all the other cities in America. We also have a huge aging population. So that's only going to grow in the rest of the United States. So there's a lot of really cool things here in South Florida that, I guess some people could look at them as problems, but when you're an entrepreneur, you look at it as opportunity. And so it's kind of a really fun playground for startups in the health tech space to look at some of these problems that are going to be facing a lot of other areas across the country really soon. We also have a huge, huge healthcare fraud problem here in South Florida. A quarter of the Medicare fraud in the country happens in South Florida. That's insane. So between all of those, again, what most people would think of as problems, we as entrepreneurs think of them as opportunities, and it creates a lot of opportunity for startups that are either based here in Miami or coming from other places and want to kind of spend some time here and get to know all of the stakeholders here. There's a lot of opportunity to make positive change.
You brought up some great points there, and the sea level is one thing that stands out. Obviously, we don't have to deal with that here in the DC area or whatever it is. Elder care, I know I used to visit my grandparents in Miami, so that's a big thing. And then healthcare fraud, that's something that I never would have thought of, and why that's prevalent in South Florida versus any other parts of the country.
And, I really hate to perpetuate the stereotype of South Florida as like fraudulent Cuban-like people, but unfortunately there is a lot of that here. I work for an amazing Cuban entrepreneur boss who is, the majority of the people down here in South Florida are not fraudulent, but unfortunately we just have such a higher concentration of that here. So yeah, problem or opportunity, I don't know.
So it sounds like there's a lot going on right now. What do you see the future is? What are the trends? What do you see 3 to 5 to 7 years down the road if you're looking, for entrepreneurs wanting to do something down the road, someone that's in high school or college right now? What do you see coming up down the road?
So I think across all industries, we've been talking a lot about AI recently. And now that I've gotten much more experience in the broader tech industry through working here at Building, I think I've seen how AI is disrupting other industries, and healthcare tends to be one of the last ones that's disrupted. But I hate to say that I think we're holding on to some vestiges of like doctor-patient relationship needing to be in person, all of these sorts of things that, the AMA will probably kill me for saying this, but like, I really think that the next generation of consumer is just going to be so much more digital and really not value that in-person relationship as much. And, as AI gets smarter and smarter, one of my colleagues shared with me an article today about like 50% of doctors look up Wikipedia as a source for like diagnosing.
No.
Don't quote me on that. It was something about 50% of doctors and Wikipedia. So, I mean, like, I think Watson can probably be a little bit smarter than that. And like, you know, because medicine is so evidence-based, if we can show the evidence that AI can make better decisions than most, you know, clinicians, and obviously this will probably be like a step-by-step, specialty by specialty process. And, you know, I think IBM is doing a really good job of portraying Watson as just an aid to processes that are already happening and not making these decisions on its own. But I really do think that's going to be one of the big changes, for better or worse. I think it's going to come.
I love it. AI. That's some great intel, right? Artificial intelligence. I mean, that's cutting edge right there. And that's exactly why we wanted Health Tech Jen on the podcast, the Boost podcast right there. So, you know, when we're talking about growing your business, growing your community, I know you talked about events earlier, but please just kind of expand on that, on how you've been able to grow your personal brand and grow your business.
Yeah. So I think it gets back to what I said earlier, which is I really do love my job. And, you know, if I weren't doing this and getting paid for it, I would still be doing this. So, you know, when I first moved down here to Miami, I literally knew no one. I knew the people who hired me and like a couple of people from that company. And I didn't have any family here. I didn't have any friends here. I didn't have any other business contacts here. So for me, like, I truly enjoyed going to all of these events, getting to know all of the stakeholders and learning from them. And it was also really exciting for me to be in the tech scene where a lot of people were my age and some of them even younger and are like CEOs and founders of their own companies and like doing even more amazing things than I'm doing. Humble brag. So I think obviously, you know, I go to a lot of events and I go above and beyond in terms of following up with people and offering connections and all that sort of thing, because I really do love to do it. I definitely have found out that through this role, I found out I'm much more of a people person than I ever really gave myself credit for. So I really do get jazzed and, you know, get pumped up when I get to spend time in person with people and chatting about, you know, whatever issues they're facing or just brainstorming connections that I can make for them. You know, again, it goes back to like, be nice and add value. That's kind of like, it wasn't intentional, but that's kind of my mantra for business relationships. And I think that's done nothing but well. I will also say another mantra I have is that startup karma is real. So I think that no matter who you meet in this startup world, no matter, you know, what they're doing at this moment, they could found a really cool company. They could raise a Series A next week. They could, you know, host a really cool event that you want to go to. You know, you never really know what's going to happen with people in this world and when that karma is going to come back and be a good thing. So I try to give out as much of that positive karma and as much of those positive vibes as possible and just be a person that people want to connect with, people want to spend time with, people want to, you know, come and hang out with and offer intros to, and I try to do the same to them.
Jenny, I love that. And I hear a lot of what you're saying is about being like a people person, building relationships and being someone that people like to do business with, in addition to the fact that you're adding value. And I think that's great. There are certain people though that are just more introverted. So what do you recommend for people like that, you know, maybe you're not as comfortable going out and going to all these events and talking to people, but might be in a new city trying to grow something new? What are some advice for those people?
I think personal brand is a great way to build some credibility for yourself and build some street cred. To be honest, I haven't been quite as active on Twitter lately, but when, for example, I was at Springboard and I didn't have as much of an opportunity to go see people in person because most of our network was not based in DC, I was much more active on Twitter, kind of like keeping on top of things, tweeting out things that were interesting, tagging people that I thought would be interested in what I was doing. We also, I don't know if this is something that's like in the DC tech community or in a lot of other places, but there are tons of Slack groups here in Miami for the tech community. And there are a lot of people, I think I'm a rarity because I'm super active on Slack, but I'm also super active in person. Most people, you know, like I've never met them, but they're super active in all these Slack channels. And I think between social media, between Slack, for people that aren't as comfortable in person, I think those are an opportunity for them to kind of establish a brand and get their name out there without having to be necessarily comfortable in person with people. Obviously, if you're not comfortable with that either, just be kick-ass at whatever you do and let that speak for itself.
I love that. Be kick-ass at whatever you do. And so Jenny has just given us some great tips for people that, may not be comfortable reaching out and going to people at events and meeting them. There are still ways to be successful at building your business, even if you are a little more shy or introverted. Moving on to a little bit of a different topic. So I know, Jenny, when you moved to Miami, you were helping to build out a number of different ventures, both with dotBuilding, dotHealth, and Startup Bootcamp. And can you talk a little bit about when you hit some roadblocks in doing that in some of these ventures and, what that was like and how you kind of kept going, kept motivating yourself, and then got things back on track?
Yeah, building, I would say, has grown pretty naturally and pretty steadily. So I'll probably go to, when I first got here, I started this group called Miami Health Technology Meetup because I didn't see anything going on in the health tech space and I wanted to try to get people together. So I started this meetup group. I, made a cool logo and organized the first event. People RSVP'd on Meetup and usually you have like 10% of the people show up based on the number of people that register on Meetup. So I think I ordered pizza for like 20 people and like 4 people showed up. So that was a total fail. There were some interesting people there and we had, a couple of interesting conversations, but, all in all, it was kind of a fail. Then the tables turned when I met Sidonia, who is another young female founder. She's actually younger than me, and she's the founder and CEO of her own health tech company. She went through the Dream It Health Accelerator in Baltimore, and we just totally connected like, yes, there's not enough health tech in Miami. We need to do something. She had been involved in the Health 2.0 chapter in Chicago and recommended that would be a great place for us to start. They did really cool events, and we could kind of do it under that brand. So I merged the Miami Health Technology Group. It was acquired by Health 2.0 in Miami after its first meetup. So we started doing the meetups under that brand of Health 2.0. I think the brand lended a little bit more credibility. And to be honest, the fact that I wasn't just doing it by myself also really helped. So she, we got to share the responsibilities evenly. She registered a MailChimp account for us and started building our landing page, and I did the Eventbrite and, got the venues in place and got the speakers, and being able to split the responsibilities and be twice as good at everything we were doing was super helpful. Also having that support of someone else to go through it with and bounce ideas off of and not just be in it alone was super great. So I think a lot of research has been done on the value of having a co-founder. And, even though this is a volunteer side project, I think that definitely rang true with the meetups that we hosted.
That's great. I love that when, you had a pretty low turnout at your meetup, you didn't just throw your hands up in the air and say, well, forget that. We're going to, throw that in the trash and move on to something else. You really kept the door open. You were opportunistic about when you saw another person that could help you take this opportunity to the next level, and you kept at it. And that's really the difference between someone that's going to have successful growth and someone that's not. I mean, none of these companies and ventures are born overnight. They take pivots and iterations and things ebb and flow. And so it's all about always keeping your eyes open to the opportunities and the people that cross your path. And I love the way that your story really illustrates that.
Yeah. And I will say that our last event, we had over 100 people come out. So we went from 4 people to 100 people in less than a year. So yeah, we must be doing something right. But even then, you're right. It ebbs and flows. We've had events early in the year where it's 10 or 15 people. I think our next event will probably have more like 40, but you keep going with it. And as long as the overall growth rate is going up, then you're doing something right.
Great. So I know you're 24, so you have boundless energy, unlike some older entrepreneurs, but...
And I just had an espresso, so I've got even more.
Great. I love that. So how do you keep a work-life balance, though, when you're juggling all these different things between, your day job and these side projects you have going on? What do you do to unwind?
So the triathlon piece, I've never really been a fitness person, which is horrible because I work in health tech. So that has really helped me get out some of that energy and feel a little bit better about myself. Not that I was ever feeling down about myself, but having something outside of work and also something that's really positive and productive in terms of fitness and all of that has been great. But, again, I keep coming back to this, but I really love what I do. And it's true that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So I think that's kind of where it all comes back to. I would admit that, I probably don't have as great of a work-life balance as a lot of my team, for example. They do have kids. So, they get to the office at a certain time and they leave at a certain time. I'm lucky enough that I don't have those restrictions, and I'm probably putting forth a little bit more hours and late nights at the office than, those people who are a little bit later in their careers. But I'm totally okay with doing that right now. But obviously, having friends that you can unwind with is really helpful. And I actually live by myself, which I live by myself and I live 10 minutes from work. So I walk to work every day. And I think those both have been really helpful for me because I'm kind of on all day and I'm in business development. So I'm kind of interacting with people all day long. Being able to come home and just watch TV and eat something and not have to talk to anyone for a couple of hours and then just go to bed. Sometimes that's needed. So I think I've found that that's been really helpful. And the fact that I live so close to where I work and I don't have to waste as much time on transportation. I don't have to worry about traffic. I don't even have a car. So there's a lot of stressors that I've kind of removed from my life. And I think that really helped open up a lot more time, whether it's for personal stuff or for work stuff. It's been a great part of my move down here.
Jenny, I love it. The walking to work, that is a dream of mine that I have never been able to live. So, we really like what you were saying there. Fitness, that's another big thing of us. Boost Podcast, we believe in fitness. We believe that is a healthy body equals a healthy mind. So you getting into triathlons, that really resonates with this group here and with Boost. So, we definitely appreciate you coming on the podcast. Boost Podcast is really about people like you, high energy, go-getters, people that are really going out there and make things happen. So before we let you go, before we close out things here, leave us with something. Give someone who wants to be in the health tech space, someone who's in the South Florida area, just kind of give, one little tip, one little motivational thing, just something that people are going to remember you by.
Cool. So again, be nice, add value. Startup karma is real. It can come back to haunt you or it can come back to be a great thing for you. I do believe in the power of events. And if you're nervous about going to events, go with a friend. Even if they are not in your industry at all, it'll make you feel more comfortable. I think those are some of the things. And yeah.
Health tech, Jen, I love it. Events. Even if you are, you're not a talkative person, grab a friend. Go to the event, try to meet some people, shake some hands. It's not going to hurt. We love what you said there. Be nice, add value.
So Health Tech Jen, where do people find you?
I'm obviously Health Tech Jen on Twitter. You can find me there. You can get me by email. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer questions or follow up on things. My email is Jennifer @ and then for each of the three things, there's different websites. So there's different emails. So for building, it's building.co. For dotHealth, it's dotHealth.co. And for Health 2.0 Miami, it's health20miami.com. So you can go to all those sites. You can email me for any of those, Jennifer @ whatever the site is. And I'm happy to follow up with people more. If anyone is in South Florida and they want to meet up and go to health tech meetups, I love it. I can be your friend. We can network together. But yeah, feel free to contact me on any of those methods. Obviously LinkedIn too. I'm Jennifer Lannon.
So Boost Squad, I hope today's episode inspires you to think more about how you can find your passion and live your best life. For more information, head on over to our website and check out our show notes from this episode and catch the Boost bonus. Jenny, I want to thank you for sharing your journey with the Boost Squad today. And remember, guys, anything is possible.
Now that you've completed this episode, the next step is to join the Boost Squad for strategic insights, tips, and tricks, as well as exclusive resources designed specifically to accelerate your personal and professional growth. All this and more is waiting for you at theboostpodcast.com.